Hi, everyone. This is Lydia Cornell, and I'm back from a trip to Europe, to Spain and Portugal. I'll tell you about that later on another podcast. But today I want to talk about answered prayer. I had a beautiful prayer miracle the other day, and I call miracles actually natural law. They're not a juxtaposition of nature. They're natural, they're supremely natural, not supernatural, when you're in the flow of life and you're living life the right way, which means staying in the present moment, staying out of worry and fear. Because if you, as you know, if you have one foot in tomorrow and one foot in yesterday, you're pissing on today. But little joke there, but it's true. And if you look back in life too much, you get back pain. Clean up those old regrets, clean up your anger, your vengeance, your revenge, your hostility toward others. Clean up all the old baggage, guilt, regret, shame. Those are not in the present moment. Those are taking you out of the present moment into some false illusion of another reality, which may or may not have really existed except in your head. And even if you did do horrible things, you're redeemable. Because if you think about it, even Johnny Cash and even Moses, they were both redeemable. Moses killed a man, and God still used him to bring the Ten Commandments. Johnny Cash apparently did a lot of bad things, methamphetamine, beat up a woman, I think ran a car over someone, or maybe not of those things, but a lot of crazy stuff when he was out there being an alcoholic. And then he got sober and he went around helping prisoners, singing songs to them, helping people in recovery, helping people stay sober. He lived a life of redemption. So we've all had broken, miserable, maybe defective pasts. We may have done horrible things, but we're all redeemable on a daily basis if we start every day new and fresh. So anyway, the world does seem to be in a lot of chaos right now, but if you keep your eyes on the good will increase, at least in your own realm. And you cannot lift anyone up when you go down too low with them. If you're feeling so sad that you can't even breathe. At times I cry so hard for other people that I'm not able to function. That's not helping anyone. I can only help people if I stay up in the light and bring them up, lift people up, and see the joy and the good and the glimmers of hope everywhere because it's everywhere. And it starts to grow the more I focus on and seek the good. So, anyway, I want to tell you about this cool prayer healing. And I call prayer the invisible transfer of love to another. I've had absolute mind-boggling synchronicities and prayer miracles through this form of thinking, through changing my thinking. Because everything it starts with our thinking. If you decide you want to go to college, you first have to have a thought about it before you can even you just don't wake up one day and just arrive there. You think first, right? So wherever your thought, whatever is in your head will point you in the direction you're going. And whatever you're thinking about all day long becomes what's in your viewfinder on your TV screen. So be careful what you think about all day long. Seriously. And I'm now doing some studies with doctors, with neuroscientists. And in particular, I can't wait to interview Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, who wrote a book called Cured about spontaneous healings from people who were on, were given 6 months to live. And he wonders, why aren't we studying healing? Western medicine studies disease, but we refuse to study healing. Like, why are these people different? What did they do differently? Were they eating better? Were they thinking better thoughts? Did they have more to live for? These spontaneous healings very rarely come out of nowhere. But we don't seem to be interested in that in America or in Western medicine. We're not like the Chinese who are interested in, the Buddhists actually are interested in healing. And they work on that, not just with the plant medicines, but with their thinking. The Buddhist principle of pain is inevitable, suffering optional. So let me get back to my beautiful little miracle the other day. Early on in sobriety, I learned that if I surrender my fear and worry and pain for today, or just for this 1 hour, and I give it up, like I did when I raised my hand in my first recovery meeting, and I acted as if I was a child again and didn't know the answers. I said, show me, I'm listening, I'm ready for some new information. The miracle happened. one day at a time, I stayed sober. I have to pinch myself that I'm still sober 31 years later. But at that first day, I didn't have any resources, any tools, any medicine. In fact, the only medication I'm on is self-pity. That's supposed to be funny. Um, all I did was enter a meeting. I floated to this meeting, raised my hand, admitted I had a problem. And from that moment on, this beautiful love in the rooms, the higher power, whatever you want to call God, did all the heavy lifting. I didn't do anything else but become willing to learn and listen and to show up. I just showed up. I was willing and I became new again. It was like a rebirth, honestly. I felt younger. I felt alive. I felt full of wonder and innocence again, as if, wow, life is beautiful. Life is actually beautiful. Everything was sparkling. Everything was more colorful. But I was willing to take that first step of believing I could be changed, I could change, that there was hope in my suicidal depression. So anyway, but I remember that was so simple. All I did was it wasn't easy, but it was simple. All I did was raise my hand and then God did all the heavy lifting. I had 5 years of heaven on earth. I was walking around like in a glowing, you know, movie of some sort because everything went my way. Everything that wasn't meant to be, those doors were closed. Rejection was protection. All the right doors opened. My income stabilized. The money I lost through the con artists all came back in mysterious ways. Jobs came. Love came into my life. My children were, I began to appreciate more. I began to be grateful. I began to be happy. It was really weird, for someone who was miserable most of their life and couldn't see a way out. So anyway, the point being, surrender. What did I do differently back then that I stopped doing later in sobriety? I'm still sober. I haven't had a drink for 31 years since 9/11, 1994. But I struggle a little more than I had to. And even this last month, I hadn't gone to any meetings. I was traveling a lot, but I was living in the earthly realm, kind of feeling the struggle. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. If I lift my thought above the problem and believe in this higher power and the beauty and the goodness and start looking up more, start really looking up at all the beauty and let go of worry and fear and struggle and strife and thinking too much and complaining too much. The minute I wear the world as a loose garment, I start to feel better. I'm not attached to shame, blame, aches, pains, trauma, misery, depression, anything. So anyway, the key is this higher power, which is inside all of us. It's not really outside of us. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So here's what I did the other day. It was really cool. I've been having a lifelong struggle with a certain friend. And I think relationships are often the thing we most have struggles with in life. Most people, I mean, we all deal with relationships, right? And in fact, our income, our jobs, our food source, everything comes from relationships, basically. Whether it's relationship with the seller, the buyer, your boss, your kids, your family, people you struggle with, people you need their approval. When it comes to jobs, you need to get hired, right? You need to impress somebody. So anyway, the point being, I've been having this lifelong struggle, kind of a very long, years long, decades long struggle with a certain friend. We can't see eye to eye. We argue over one issue all the time. We cannot solve it. And I just finally gave up. And it's like, let go and let God. Surrender. Let go. And here's what happened. So I mistakenly left her a long voice message the other day dealing with this issue. And I shouldn't have brought it up, but I said it and I was trying to like dance around it and I was trying to like make it feel better and I was camouflaging it in all sorts of sparkly, decorations and I was, making it softer and trying to lay it better. And I got, oh shit, I sent it. I sent the message. I couldn't unsend it. On her phone, I couldn't unsend it. So it wasn't one of those newer phones. So I had to live with it. And then I got that achy feeling when she sent me back a voice text. And I went, oh God, she's going to respond badly. And sure enough, she did. She went, we just can't solve this. We can't do this anymore. And it made me hurt inside. It's like, oh, Why did I do it? Why can't I solve this? And at that moment, I remember I just heard a podcast that morning on there's only one divine mind ruling all of us when we sync up to it. When we align ourselves with God, the great goodness, the good orderly direction, the the beauty in the world, when we align ourselves with God, God's viewpoint, we're in sync with a higher form of thinking, right? We're above the problem. And everyone is controlled by this when they align themselves with it. Or when you see them aligned with it, you can actually change behavior that way. That's another whole issue. But when I stop seeing my enemy or my fears as I stop fighting them and I let them go and I accept things, reality on reality's terms, my reality I choose to be a beautiful reality, by the way. And I see the good in even bad, so-called bad people, or I see the good developing in something that's harsh looking. My reality changes. My blood pressure goes down. I feel better. My health improves. So I heard this podcast about a young physics student who could not get the answer to a physics problem. He didn't know the answer. He never studied that particular problem and he couldn't figure it out. And he had to get this answer correct for the test to get his master's degree. And it was literally now or never. And on the test, that question came. And he goes, I can't do this problem. I can't figure it out. But he said, God can. And literally 5 minutes later, this strange answer came. He goes, that must be the answer. And he picked that multiple choice question. And it was the correct answer. And he got his degree based on that. And now he's an astrophysicist working on the Artemis project at NASA. So anyway, I thought, wow, one divine love, one divine mind, one authority speaking to all of us when we link up to it. So at that moment, when I got this message from her that hurt my heart, I said, you know what? I'm going to give it to you, higher power, God, if you're real. I know you're real because I felt a shift. And I had so much evidence that this beautiful, loving force that created all the beauty in the world is real. Okay? It's quantum physics, actually. And I surrendered it. And I could feel the shift. I actually looked up in the room I was in and I said, I'm giving this to you, God. Take it from me. You solve it. I can't solve it with her humanly anymore. I can't get my hands into it anymore. I'm sick of overthinking it. You solve it. And at that moment, I felt the shift. And I said, it's in your hands. I know the solution will come for both of us. And I walked away from the problem. Hang on, let me cough for a second here. And then what was really cool was that a few hours later, I got the exact answer I'd always been hoping for because I knew it was the highest answer. Not that I was always right, not that my ego had to be involved, but I knew that the answer was one of us was closed-minded about this topic. One of us was a little more open-minded, and I knew which one was which, and I'm not trying to, Anyway, I got the answer. And she also had said, I've been praying about it, and I think the solution is that she, need to open my heart and really hear you for once and listen. And you just sit and tell me everything you think that I'm not hearing. And I went, whoa, what a relief. What an incredibly beautiful thing she said. So, this may sound more detailed than you need to know, but what I love about this is that I completely surrendered it. I didn't take it back. I didn't leave her a fake, cute message begging forgiveness or saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called you. I didn't do any of that stuff I usually do, which is to meddle in my own business too much. I let it go completely. I let go and let God completely. And I got the God shot, the answered prayer, the little miracle. And I feel like, wow, if I could do that with everything. I have struggles with other people in life and with certain projects I'm working on that I can't seem to find the answer to. I'm giving it up. Give up. Let go. Go in a different direction for a while. Forget about it. But you leave it in the hands of this beautiful, loving higher power. You don't just walk away and grumble about it. You trust the universe will come up with a solution. So I just want to share that today because I'm now going to do this surrender for everything because it's been working and I know prayer works. Prayer is the invisible transfer of love to another or to yourself. and to the universe and to the climate and to the politicians that are running our lives and to the economy to see the good, seek the good. There's no opposing force to good. There really isn't. Or the great peacemaker could never have healed if he was fighting a dark power. And I don't believe in original sin. I believe we're all born good because I'm watching that happen with these little children, the babies in our lives. But I believe that we learn it here in this mortal realm. We're knocked about a bit. We get greedy, envious, jealous. We hear other people's opinions and then it rubs off on us. Our job is to keep that at bay, rise above the fray, see the higher good in everything. And then life does seem to work really well. It flows. I know I'm still learning. I'm a student, but I'm really loving this. And I'm back. I feel like I'm back in my spirit again. It took a little break for a while, but thank God I didn't drink. And my heart goes out to those who are struggling right now on any level in life. But for me, income, jobs, money came out of thin air one day when I was desperately in need of money to pay a really big debt. And I said, well, it worked for alcohol. I'm going to surrender it. I got on my knees and I gave it up. And I didn't worry. That's the key. I didn't take back the worry all day long. And the next day, I got a letter from an old bank account saying we found this money, the exact amount I needed. It was like $15,000. And we found this exact amount. You need to prove your middle name is Natasha, which was a fake middle name I used to use based on the Boris and Natasha Bullwinkle cartoon. But what would, here's what's weird. I didn't have a legal document with that on it. I didn't think I did, but then I remembered 6 months ago, I put that name, that fake name, Natasha, on my brand new baby's official birth certificate. I put every name I'd ever had. And I had evidence that it was my name at one time with my driver's license and passport. And I got the money the next day. So I know God isn't a cash machine. It isn't magic. But then again, there's a little bit of magic here. Maybe the universe is magical and mystical, as Benson Boone's song says. And maybe we just have to look up and start to have a sense of wonder again and be excited and surprised by life and love one another. Just love each other. Pour love on every problem, and you will walk on a softer planet and your problems will be lessened. I know it. Trust the universe. Trust good friends. Surround yourself with good people and spread love everywhere you go. Okay. I love you all. Thanks for listening. Have a beautiful rest of August. I'll be at Orlando Fanboy in 2 weeks, August 28th through the 30th. I'll have my co-host back, Darlene Sperlazza, Dr. Darlene Sperlazza, in a couple weeks. And then we'll have more and more guests on the show this year. Okay. Stay in a state of joy if you can, because you attract whatever you're thinking about all day long. Yeah, that means you can be attractive even if you're not good looking, because if you radiate love, you attract people. Okay. More later.